Hello. Apparently I'm live, so good, excellent. Uh, Good afternoon. I see there's already a couple people in the chat. Hi, guys. Today is Friday. It's October 23rd, and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. For those of us in the Pacific time zone, I'm Alison Pitt, and you're watching Daily Star Trek Views. It's the live stream version of Daily Star Trek News. It's kind of a weird name. I recognize that because the show isn't daily. It happens on a day, but it is not daily. Anyway, hi, hello, welcome. Um, Today on the show, we're going to cover, it's actually kind of a packed show, but I think some of the topics are a little shorter than normal. So hopefully we'll get through them. We're going to talk about what's coming up with season 4 and how that's going to work for Star Trek Discovery. I'm a nerd about the business side of things, so we're going to talk about the new ViacomCBS Streaming organization. That'll be cool. And then, because I know you guys are all watching it, Star Trek Discovery, we'll talk a little bit about episode 2 of season 3. But we'll leave that to the last half of the show. So if you don't want to know, you can flip off halfway. But for the rest of you that want to stick around, get your questions ready because we'll talk about it. Should be fun. Before I get started, I just want to remind you that if you like what we do here at Daily Star Trek News, if you read the newsletter or go on the website, please consider making a donation through Patreon. It's a monthly contribution and it helps us out a lot. You can start at just $1 a month, and actually in October, because it's Discovery Month, we have a special offer on that. If you join at the $10.31 tier, see what I did there? Then you can you'll get a free magnet, which I don't have. My visual aids have failed me, but it's a free magnet that says "Trekking every day." It'll go on your fridge or anything else that's metallic. Don't put it on a hard drive. It's probably not a good idea. But yeah, that's through the end of the month, so through the end of next week. There's that. Okay, so listen. And before. I've been meaning to say this for weeks and weeks. I just want to give a shout out. I know he's not in the chat, but I'm going to do it anyway. I want to give a shout out to Tony Cox, who is a host of Priority One. I'm not sure if he's there all the time now, but back when I was on Priority One, we used to do Priority One after hours, and it was kind of like an after show, and we used to just chat about stuff. We went through the entire season of Lost in Space, the first season of Lost in Space, and those are really fun shows to check out. I'm not sure where they're available. They might be in the feed, or they might be Patreon only. I don't remember. But it was a fun little series because I hated Lost in Space. I hated Lost in Space all the way up until the very end, which I really liked it. And Tony was exactly the opposite. He loved Lost in Space right till the end, and then he hated it. And it was a constant source of amusement that right about the time I started liking it, he started hating it. But recently he sent me this, which is a little, it's the mission log, and it's from Lost in Space. And this is actually the notebook that I write down my little notes for when I'm preparing for the live stream. So I think of him every time I'm doing a live stream, and I've been meaning to give him a shout out for a couple of weeks, and there, now I've done it. Right. So let's get started. One of the biggest stories this week was actually kind of a follow-on from last week. So if you remember, on Friday, we did talk a little bit about the fact that Star Trek Discovery season 4 was announced. Right into right after I published my show, which is great. But then it was Monday, I believe. Yeah, it was Monday that it came out. Alex Kurtzman and Sonequa Martin Green did an interview with IndieWire, and they talked a little bit about finishing up season 3, and then a little bit about what might be happening for production-wise in season 4. And it was something that kind of it got me thinking, because one of the questions that I've had is how exactly are they going to do season 4? And we still don't have a lot of details. Like, I would kind of like to know, did Sonequa bring her baby? I don't know. But there were a couple of details in there, and I just wanted to talk about it briefly today because I find it really interesting. So The first one, so looking at season 3 first, one of the most interesting things that they talked about was actually reshoots, inserts. And something that I hadn't known before was that they actually did some motion capture in people's homes over the summer to help them do that. And now, like, now I watch Discovery going, was that it? Did they do it? I will say, the quick preview, I won't talk about it too much, but there was one particular scene in Discovery this week where I went, "Oh, that audio is bad." And I can almost guarantee you that was something that they added in post that was recorded not on site because it just doesn't sound right. And speaking as an audio person who's recorded in a number of different places, one of the hardest things to do is to get your audio tone to sound right. Every room has its own like unique audio sound. Like the because of the geometry of the room and the stuff that you have in it, like this room, since I started recording in this room and did some audio treatment to it, sounds really different from when I was recording in my closet. You can go back and listen to them if you want to, but it sounds really different. And so if you are recording in a different place, it's really, really difficult to get it to sound right. I mean, contrast that to color grading, which is a lot easier to do. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to say I'm an expert at the audio thing because maybe there's a tool that's like the color grading, but for audio that you can make it like that. But in my experience, the interaction of sound waves together, you just can't quite ever match it right. Anyway, nerding aside, they did some really interesting things in season 3 to get that completed. One of which was motion capture, which I have this vision in my head of actors like trying to set up like a backdrop and motion capture equipment in their home and do that. I don't know, and it makes it fun now to watch Star Trek Discovery. But that wasn't the most interesting thing. Actually, was Alex Kurtzman was talking more about season 4, and obviously, so let me take a step back. Season 3 was the beginning was shot on location. So if you've watched the first 2 episodes, you know a lot about that. The landscapes are like incredibly remarkable. They were filmed in Iceland, and I remember it was a big deal when they were filming in Iceland. Well, we can't go to Iceland right now. I mean, we might be able to, but really, on location shooting is out of the question. But what Alex Kurtzman did say was, I'm trying to find the quote. Oh, it isn't a quote. IndieWire explained that they're expecting to use an AR wall or an R wall for some of season 4, which is so exciting to me. And I was just talking about this. If you've never heard of an R wall or an AR wall, they're very neat. There is actually, if you go onto dailystartreknews.com and you read the article that was earlier this week about Discovery season 4, there's a video in there about the Mandalorian using a similar technology. I don't know if it's the same brand or whatever. Basically, an AR wall replaces a green screen. So instead of a static picture, you've actually got like a gigantic LED wall behind you, and the AR technology syncs up with the camera so that as the camera moves, the backdrop is actually changing, and it renders it in real time. And contrast that to something like Avengers Endgame, where it was like all green screen. For the actors, for lighting, for everything, something like an AR wall is just a whole nother level of technology. So that's kind of exciting. That's like an exciting adaptation that they are looking into doing in order to accommodate production in this time of COVID. And I found that really, really interesting. And I'm a production nerd. I find all of this stuff really cool of how they actually put a show together. And I'm going to be watching really closely to any stories that come out about season 4, because I'm so curious. I was just starting to understand how TV production worked before the pandemic. And now it's just a whole different field. So it's really, really interesting. Also in that same article, that same interview with IndieWire, they talked about the fact that everybody is quarantining in Toronto. So that kind of answers that question. I think we already knew, but basically it sounds like the cast and crew are quarantining there. That picture that leaked a few weeks ago, I don't know if you saw it on the sandwich board. It says cast and crew Discovery, come this way. I suspect that's the timing is about right for when they would have arrived to go into quarantine, and then they're going to shoot in a bubble. So uh, you will know when I know about how that's going. I don't know how long they're planning to shoot or anything like that. Although if you are a production nerd like I am, go check out the IATSE website, because that's like that's the laborers, and it's got dates and things on there. That's how I so we knew that the Discovery season 4 was going to be shooting from November 2nd because it was on the listing. It also says Strange New Worlds is going to be shooting from February, so we can expect probably more news about that as that gets closer as well. Interesting production note. So you know that I don't like to talk too much about like rumors and speculation and stuff. But I do watch a couple of places that are like unconfirmed things. Like Production Weekly is good. I don't pay for their like their subscriptions like hundreds of dollars a month. But they do publish on a weekly basis what like the front cover is, like what the summary is. And it doesn't give you any detailed information about the stages of production of things, but you can read on there and you will catch things like Star Trek Discovery Season 4, which was a working title of Green Harvest for a long time. Strange New World is on there. And also Picard Season 2, working title. What's it called? What's the working title? I can't remember. Bear with. I'm just looking it up right now. You can't see it on my screen. Where is it? The working title for Star Trek Picard was Drawing Room, which I couldn't remember, but it's now turned up on Production Weekly. That doesn't necessarily mean anything. It just means that things are happening and that it exists. So there's that. That's all I know about season 4 so far. It'll be starting in a couple weeks, and I'm hoping that we know more, but I don't know where that puts us in terms of when that might come out. 2021 maybe, but then I don't know. I don't want to speculate. After just telling you that I like to speculate on this show, I don't want to speculate. I'm often wrong about these things, so yeah. Right. Wow, you guys are chatting a lot. Okay. I'll catch up on chat in a little bit, but for now, I'm gonna quickly, since we're talking about production-y, businessy, behind the scenes-y things anyway. My most exciting story of the week, which I realize is super nerdy, is the announcement earlier this week, ViacomCBS's new streaming. I don't know what they call it, division, organization, department. I don't know. Excuse me. It's been a long time coming. In fact, I was a little bit surprised when I was reading it that it didn't already happen. But basically, where CBS All Access was part of ViacomCBS Digital, it is now going to be under an umbrella of ViacomCBS Streaming, which incorporates both CBS All Access and Pluto TV, and of course, CBS All Access when it becomes Paramount Plus. Now, honestly, the reason that that was actually the second thing that I saw when this article came across. The first thing that came across that I noticed that kind of made my ears prick up was that the president and CEO of ViacomCBS Streaming is not a diehard ViacomCBS or CBS person. It's actually the CEO of Pluto TV, and that's interesting to me because Pluto TV is actually a relatively new addition to ViacomCBS. I don't remember when exactly they bought them, but at the time that the merger happened last year, I think it was within about a year before that. So Pluto TV has only been with ViacomCBS or CBS. No, they were Viacom first. Pluto TV is relatively new to that organization. Well, I mean, it's relatively new in general, but they, as a service, have really gone from strength to strength. And if you watch the show, if you've been here on the live stream, you know that I am a huge, huge fan of Pluto TV. I think the business model is super sound. I think it's got a great kind of nostalgia feel to it, and it's a good service. It's, mostly it's sort of scrolling, whatever happens to be broadcasting. There is a limited amount of stuff that's on demand. And in terms of looking at big picture Viacom CBS, it's really important because they've shown that they can be efficient, profitable, and a viable product for consumers at a free tier. We like the sound of free. And and it's important for Viacom CBS because so to take it sideways a little bit, in retail, we talk about good, better, best, a pricing strategy or a ranging strategy that incorporates at least three levels. And generally, they talk about good, better, and best. If we're talking about plants or paint or loaves of bread, what that means is that you have some sort of a basic and own brand cheapest version. You have something in the middle that's a moderate price that most people are going to buy, and they probably know the price of it. And then you have like a premium version, which is a step up from the middle one. It's more expensive. The price is more flexible because people know they're getting a premium service, so they're willing to pay a broader range of prices. And that's exactly what Viacom CBS are creating with their Viacom CBS streaming department. They now are going to have a good, better, best pricing strategy, which is going to incorporate free, which is Pluto TV, and then better and best, they've got CBS All Access, which currently is $5.99 with ads, $9.99 without ads, and then there's bundles that you can get and so forth. That's really, really good business as far as I'm concerned. Like the good, better, best thing is not like a buzzword. It's not like the new trendy strategy. The reason that people use that in retail is because it always plays out well, generally speaking. I mean, there are exceptions to every rule, but the reason that it exists is because it's a thing that like human people understand. And the same with this. Any consumer that comes to a Viacom CBS product is going to be presented with a free option, a middle ground option that is a lower price, and then a premium, and then they can choose. And that having the choice it psychologically affects you in a lot of ways. And so then them having that flexibility of those three tiers is incredibly strong as far as I'm concerned. And I don't believe there's another streaming service or group of services that has the same thing. Most have two. They might have a free and a paid. They might have a cheap and an expensive, but I haven't, correct me if I'm wrong, please, because I don't want to be speaking out of turn. But the idea of having a three-tiered option is really, really incredibly strong. So I just want to say that. Also, Bob Bakish talked at length. Well, I say at length, it was like a paragraph. Sorry, I get really excited about this stuff. I'm going to take a step back again. This press release was unusually long. Usually they're pretty short, and then half of it is just telling you background information on Viacom CBS, Nickelodeon, or whatever. This went through a lot of changes. They talked about Tom Ryan, who's the head of Pluto TV, becoming president and CEO of Viacom CBS Streaming. They talked about, I'm sorry, I can't remember their names right now, but there's a number of changes for Viacom CBS Network International, which is covering the international side of things and the rollout of Paramount Plus in Latin America, Australia, and the Nordics. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on in there. Bob Bakish, who's the president and CEO of Viacom CBS, talked about specifically, and I want to grab his quote because I don't want to misquote him. Bear with. By the way, that's a Miranda reference if you've never seen Miranda. I say it all the time and I forget that it's not actually in common parlance. Okay, yeah, so Bob Backus says, "ViacomCBS has a unique opportunity to combine the best of our brands in a seamless ecosystem of must-watch direct-to-consumer services for audiences around the world. As we plan for the launch of Paramount+, bringing together the leaders of our streaming platforms to create a unified global organization will enable us to execute a holistic strategy across both free and pay. We will draw on the breadth and depth of Viacom CBS's franchises and branded IP to deliver an extraordinary collection of diverse content with the convenience consumers want." And the things that I pick out of there are seamless ecosystem of must-watch direct-to-consumer services, and also talking about Viacom CBS's franchises and branded IP. They have talked, I mean, Star Trek featured in when they were talking about the merger back in December of last year, Star Trek, they talked about Star Trek. It is a flagship property for Viacom CBS, not just for CBS All Access, but for Viacom CBS. And so him talking about taking a holistic strategy towards free and pay and talking about a global strategy, to me, just to me, that signals an intention that eventually we could get over these major hurdles that a lot of fans have been complaining about, which are the paywall and international distribution. Because I know the Star Trek Lower Decks thing is still a nightmare. We still don't have international distribution, if I recall correctly, for Lower Decks. And that was thrown into, a little bit of turmoil because of the pandemic, but still, theoretically, when Paramount Plus is global, we could see a very different presentation of Star Trek properties across the world. And that is extremely exciting to me. And I'm way ahead of that. However, you can bet that in a year, if that like happens, I will tell you all about it because I really like being right. Anyway, the other thing, and I think Zach pointed this out, I pointed it out in my story this morning. Mark DeBevoise, who is the outgoing chief digital officer for Viacom CBS, who had actually, by the way, only been in that role about a year. He took over from Jim Lanzone just before the merger happened. So he's relatively new to that role. He's the only person that I can find quoted that has actually said that the prices won't change. And I want to put that with a huge asterisk that does not mean anything. All it means is that I won't be quoting that anymore. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, are they going to change the price?" I've done this before. Somebody asked me and I said, "Well, Mark DeBevoise, who's the chief digital officer, has said prices will not change from CBS All Access." I really can't say that anymore because he will not be a leadership role within the company from that point on. And Viacom CBS haven't elaborated. I so I, that's another one, like, that's one of the ones that I will be watching because it's a question that I get asked a lot. It's a question that I know gets circulated around a lot. I would say that it now is a little bit in question, but still no cause for alarm. But their pricing strategy is going to be something that they're looking at really hard because now they have a whole different proposition to customers than they had even 6 months ago. So. All right. So this is a half an hour show and I've just taken up like 24 minutes talking about nonsense. So that's great. I'm going to skip ahead. And let's talk about Discovery. I might run over a few minutes, but I'm going to still try and keep it relatively tight. We talked about this last week. I'm not going to do a full review because I think that's kind of pointless and stupid on a serialized show because we don't know what's going to happen. So I have a hard time judging exactly what's happened in this episode. But a couple points that I would like to make. Number one, it is going to bother me forever that the last episode was called The Last Hope Is You, Part 1. And this episode is called Far From Home. Where's part 2? Also, if you go, because you can go on IMDb All of the rest of the episodes have titles. We got That Hope Is You, Far From Home, People of Earth, Forget Me Not, Die Trying, Scavengers, one that I won't say because I think it's a spoiler, Sanctuary, um, two more that could be spoilers, The Citadel, The Good of the People, and Outside. Um, there's no That Hope Is You Part 2. And that's gonna bug me for the rest of the season. But, moving on. I wanted to mention something that Eric from Trek Report actually wrote to me, and I had noticed last week and didn't mention. Kind of groundbreaking that episode 1, there were no white people in that episode, which is awesome. I actually argued way back in like, oh God, 2016, 2017 on Priority One. I actually argued that they should make the entire main cast not white of Discovery if they really wanted to. If Star Trek really wanted to make a statement about diversity and inclusion, they really should just not have any white people at all in the main cast. Which, of course, isn't what happened. But I have to say, it kind of flew under the radar. I didn't see a lot of people reporting on it, and of course, I didn't do an article because I didn't feel like I needed to do an article. But I thought that was important to point out, and I didn't even notice it until afterwards. So well done, Star Trek. That's really great. That is hugely, hugely wonderful for diversity and representation, and I'm proud that Star Trek did that. So well done, guys. Yeah, but as far as this episode, I'm not going to go over the whole plot of everything, but the thing that I will say that stood out to me the most, and that that I'm not a huge, huge fan of Discovery. It's not my favorite series. And Star Trek Discovery has hurt me, and I still don't trust them at all. So I'm cautiously optimistic about the rest of this season. I loved the ensemble aspect of this episode. And it took me back to TNG. It took me back to a time when we were talking about our ship and our crew. Each of the people that appeared in the episode had a personality, and they each went through their own private sort of drama in the episode, and it worked together so perfectly well that it's given me hope, because I think Star Trek is at its best when it's talking about an ensemble, because it subconsciously gets you, we're a team. This is an us. This is not a you or a me or that one person. And that is one of the major complaints that I've had of previous seasons of Star Trek Discovery, that it really was all about Michael Burnham. Arian literally said, as she was dying, her dying gasp, it's all about you, Michael. And I just thought, God, that's like really meta. It's breaking the fourth wall, because it really was. The first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery were all about Michael Burnham. And, that's just not, she's a good part of the crew. I like her as part of an ensemble, but I want to see more of them as a team. The only part of this episode I didn't like was when Burnham turned up at the end. And that's not an attack on Sonequa Martin Green, and it's not an attack on Burnham. What it is they worked so brilliantly well as a team, as a crew, for the whole of this episode. They worked together. They made the most of their strengths and compensated for each other's weaknesses. And then as soon as Michael Burnham turns up on screen, it was like, we're saved. And I just wanted to be like, no, you saved you. You didn't, okay, it was looking a little dire there at the end, but the crew saved themselves for the most part. And then so that made me sad. But having said that, I just loved the presentation of the whole thing. I loved the Western. I love the appearance of the Cordons. There's going to be some real interesting stuff going on. They're making a lot of references to the Babel Conference in this, which is really interesting, because the Babel Conference took place, TOS. So after Discovery. So yeah, after Discovery, but long time in the past. But, they're talking about the Andorians, the Tellarites, the Orions, the Corridons, so, the miners, the lack of dilithium, like, it's all kind of, something's bubbling there, which is really interesting. Loved the appearance. I can't remember the actor's name. I was looking at it before. Let me see if I can look it up. The really nasty guy. Where is he? This is great. Great television. Wait. Far From Home. Where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Jake Weber, who played Zahir. He was like I think he was the husband on Medium. I haven't seen him in years, and I loved him. I was like, I recognize that guy. So that was great too. But on the whole, really good episode. I'm excited for the next one. It's the first time in a long time with Star Trek that I've been excited to see the next episode. So I'm really happy for that. Okay, I've been talking forever, so I'm gonna zing past some of the chat and say hello to people. Hi, Zach. Hal, Pod Jr., Tim, Rorschach. Okay, I'm not gonna name everybody, but hello, everybody in the chat. And Chris is here. Everybody say hi to Chris because he's wonderful. Andrew says we should just shoot all of season 4 at Vasquez Rocks. It's an idea. Yeah. Wes says that Emily Coots on Instagram posted a Star Trek style quarantine poster from their sound stages a few days ago. I should have to check that out because I'm very curious about how this is all working. And those of you who are saying that you should check out Pluto TV, yes, you absolutely should. Their Star Trek channel is wonderful. If you are just like need something to be on, you go there and you don't have to think about it. You just turn on the Star Trek channel and I can guarantee you it'll be something that you like because at the moment it's all just TNG. I don't think it's quite in order, but it's, random episodes. And it's even got all the commercials in the original commercial break. So it's like back in the old days. It's wonderful. So Zach and Andrew were talking about CBS All Access. Zach says, I just want a stable app with a good library and international distribution so I don't have to worry about my Twitter friends and spoilers. I agree with you. I think that is an incredibly common desire, and I would fall over in shock if they don't know that at ViacomCBS. Because people internationally, they have Amazon Prime and they have Netflix. They now have Disney Plus. I think that's the expectation. And I don't think it's straightforward to get there. It's not like you can just turn it on. But I think that that's what they're heading towards, personally. Andrew says, my guess is that the part 2 title will be used as the season finale of season 4. That would be an interesting thing because either that or they've gone super meta because the title of the episode was The Last Hope Is You, right? Or That Hope Is You. The Last Hope Is You. I can't remember. But what if they were talking to us? What if they were talking to me? Part 2 is me being the last hope. Okay, Zach says, maybe it would have been nice if they just met her up in orbit instead. I try not to judge on plot points this early in a season or at all in a season like this. And when I said Discovery like hurt me before, it's because season 1, like, I don't know if you were listening to Star Trek podcasts at the time. We all knew Lorca was evil all of us. We all knew for like months before it came out. And suddenly, because of that, and then that happened, and you get into this thing where you hyper focus on everything that happened because you know it's going to come back. The one that I keep saying is Saru's little threat ganglia thing when the doctor was like, "Oh, it's growing some kind of bony structure." Sure enough, now he shoots stuff out of his where his threat ganglia is. Like, Discovery has made me so that I hyper focus on everything that looks slightly weird, and then I insist that it's coming back when it may or may not be. We have a different leadership now. Maybe that won't be the case, but I don't know. So I'm not going to judge on that particular plot point because it might be important later. But you're right. From a talking about the crew perspective, I kind of wish that they'd gotten free. Draw it out, make it super dramatic, do the thing like where it comes down to the last second, like in Galaxy Quest. But ultimately it kind of seems like they didn't do anything. So like the whole episode was a waste. And then they got saved by Burnham. I'm not going to judge. Come back at the end of the season. We'll do a wrap up where we'll just spend the whole half an hour ranting, either positively or negatively about Discovery. So, Zach also says Saru is now totally one of our great captains. I think he's great now, actually. I kind of miss Saru, who was a little scared of everything because I understood him more. Sorry about that. But now he's a really compassionate leader. I love the conversation that he had with Tilly on the way out to the settlement. I thought that was a really great character moment for both of them. Zach said, "Oh yeah, we called it with Ash Vogue." Yeah, I think we called it with. We knew that Vogue wasn't going to be Vogue when the guy who was playing him didn't exist. Shout out to Javid Iqbal. So, anyway, okay. So, thank you all for tuning in. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm apologizing for going over because I'm pretty sure that all of the previous live streams that I've done have gone over as well. So it's just keeping in the theme. But I just wanted to say thank you for all for tuning in and for chatting with me. I appreciate it. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. There's a little button down below. I didn't pause in the middle to tell you about special things that are happening. We are still doing, tomorrow is the last day for the giveaway. I'm going to show it to you again. We have this fancy guy. I don't know if you can see him. That is a gold Delta Shield. It's a lapel pin. It's really nicely made. That's by cufflinks.com. And I'm giving that away this weekend. You can still enter a few different ways. Go to dailystartreknews.com/cufflinks and find out how to enter there. There's also a link to the Cufflinks site and a promo code that if you don't win, you can still get 15% off with the promo code there. So it's worth going and having a visit. They have some really, really high quality, nice stuff. I reviewed one of their silk ties recently that was really nice, but they've got cufflinks, obviously, ties, pins kind of like this. It's a good place. So go and check that out and make sure to enter the giveaway too if you haven't already. Also, just to reiterate, we have a special offer on Patreon this month. So if you join at the $10.31 tier or up, everybody's getting a free magnet. So it's easy. We're celebrating Discovery Season 3 on that. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week. I'm sure something dramatic will happen in the week. We'll get to talk about that, and then a little bit of Discovery Season 3, Episode 3. And we'll see you then. Live long and prosper.